Assignment 4.03, Exposure Triangle. Have you ever taken a picture that turned out blurry, too dark, or too light, and you didn't know why? In this assignment, you will learn about the three elements that make up the exposure triangle. While it is possible to take okay photos without knowing about the exposure triangle, knowing what it is and learning how to adjust your camera will give you more consistent and better results with your photos. Every camera reacts differently to each side of the exposure triangle, and you will need to quickly learn how your camera compensates for each of these three elements. Project instructions. In this assignment, you will learn about the three elements that make up the exposure triangle and how they affect photography. You will also learn how your camera handles each of these elements. You will have to research and find out what your camera's high and low limits are for shutter speed, aperture values, and ISO. On the blog page 4.03 of your Weebly portfolio, post 3 paragraphs, one for shutter speed, one for aperture, and one for ISO. In each paragraph, explain what the term is, how it affects exposure, and how it affects the photograph. Also, most importantly, post the upper and lower limits for your camera for each of these elements. You may need to do some research to find out what these limits are. Project Checklist Rubric. On your 4.03 blog page, include the following elements: the definition for shutter speed effects on exposure, shutter speed effects on the photograph, and the shutter speed upper and lower limits on your camera. Definition for aperture, how aperture affects exposure, how aperture affects the photograph, and the aperture upper and lower limits for your camera. The definition for ISO, the ISO's effect on exposure, the ISO's effect on the photograph, and the ISO upper and lower limits for your camera. Turn-in instructions. After you've completed today's work in your Weebly portfolio, click on the Add Submission button below to submit this assignment. Copy and paste the URL to your Weebly blog page 4.03 in the Add Submission text area. It will look something like this. After you have pasted your URL, make sure to format it with the hyperlink tool and make it clickable. After you submit the assignment, make sure to go back and click on the link to check and see if it will take me to the correct page of your portfolio blog. Good luck!